Amateur? Are you listening, Bronze?
I am the Night Rider. I'm a fuel-injected suicide machine.
I am a rocker. I'm a roller. I'm a
Controller! I'm the Night Rider, baby!
Normandy, and we ain't never coming back.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. We are here at the end of the world, and I am here as always with Travis.
Hey there.
And we are joined today with our friend Dominic from a podcast that the name always eludes me because I always want to call it Monster Movie Fun Time, and that's not what it's called. It's called Monster Movie Fun Time Go, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, see, I have to add on the end
Say the
part
whole
there.
thing. Yes. You say the whole thing.
You gotta say the whole thing, yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't count. Say it. So we are here, and how's everyone doing? Travis, how's your? I feel like I just talked to you a couple days ago because I just talked to you a couple days ago.
It was just a couple days ago. Yeah, that's right. Not a lot's happened. I got a nice 3-day weekend. I'm enjoying it. Mostly sleeping, but you know.
As you do.
Yeah, as I do. If I have any chance, I'm gonna. But it's been nice. It's been quiet.
Nice. Dom, how have you been? Have you been getting along since the last time you joined us on our podcast? Was way back when we talked about Neon City.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting along okay. I'm getting older. It's gonna be my birthday in 2 days.
Happy
It-
birthday!
it's,
Yeah,
and
happy,
it's-
happy birthday officially on here.
Today is my brother Benjamin's. The day we're recording this is my brother Benjamin's birthday. He was born 2 days short of a year after me.
Ooh.
So every year he's like, "We're the same age."
Kind of Irish twins. Maybe a little
Yes.
longer, but not as close.
Nice.
So
that must
there you go.
that must
I'm
have been
gonna
fun when
be-
y'all were growing up.
Yeah. We're the same age. You're not my older brother anymore. Yeah, I'm about to be 57.
Nice.
I started to say 47. I'm like,
I was gonna
that's
say a
not
nice,
right.
good odd number.
Yeah.
57.
Jesus Christ. Feeling every minute of it.
I believe it. Oh man, I mean, I haven't had a worse
I'm
time
not
since
looking
when
forward to it.
I hit 41 and like my body was just like, all right, giving up on you now.
You're
Like
done.
I just have pains now. Like my hand hurts and I have no idea why.
I just
Like-
turned 38, so I'm I'm moving up there.
You got a lot to look forward to.
I have a
You're
lot
a
to
wee
look forward
bairn.
to. I'm a wee child on this journey. So yeah, I talked to Travis a few days ago. I bought a house. If you have not been listening to the show, so I've been dealing with all of that. And the last time we were here, we were also dealing with AT&T drama. The internet. We've recorded 2 back-to-back episodes, talked about Snowpiercer, and then recorded right away to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine,
Yeah.
which was a weird time. I got
It
to.
was.
I think both of us realized that we haven't watched any of the Marvel movies since like Phase 2,
Right.
Phase 3
Okay.
maybe. The last Marvel movie besides Deadpool and Wolverine I had actually watched was, I think Ant-Man.
Yeah,
was
I tried to
Ant-Man.
watch
I think it was
the.
Ant-Man.
Wow.
I never
Yeah,
finished.
I know what
Jesus.
happens
Quantumania.
in all of. I know what happens
And
in
I
all
felt
of them. But like it
I
became
feel like a
pro
slacker because
wrestling.
I haven't watched. I feel like a slacker because I haven't watched all of What If yet.
Oh, I
Oh,
don't
I've
give a shit
watched.
about any of those
Oh,
things.
yeah, I
I've
was gonna say I
completely-
watched part
I
of
don't
I'm
give a shit about any
completely
of
up to
those.
date
it.
on the movies. I'm completely up to date. I
don't give a
haven't
shit about any
watched
of
all
those.
of Agent Carter or all of Agents of
Fuck
Shield.
Agent
But
Carter.
as far
Fuck
as
the
movies
Shield.
go, I am up to date.
Agent Carter can go suck an agent dick. No,
You see,
I don't
I-
have time for all of that shit. I just the core movies. This is how
I
I
do.
love. This is how the Marvel
I do.
movies lost me, is because there's just so many of them, and
Mhm.
I don't have time for all that shit. I don't have
Yeah.
time for all that shit.
I've been
I don't have time.
toying
for it.
with doing a Marvel side project with
Oh
Yeah.
one of
God.
my sisters, but we'll see. Marvel
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
fun time go.
Hey, there
I
you
could.
go.
That would
We're
be
in
fun.
negotiation.
I would have
Yeah.
a lot to say about a lot of them up to Ant-Man, and then it would just be like I didn't watch it and I don't give a shit. I don't watch it and I don't give a shit.
Look,
Oh, I
I
was excited about that one.
recommend
I will
if you're
say,
gonna catch up, I do
oh, go ahead.
recommend the Ms. Marvel TV show
Uh-huh.
if you're gonna attempt to catch up, and WandaVision and Agatha all along.
I am going to rescind my previous statement that Ant-Man was the last one I have seen. I have seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and 3, but I almost don't
Okay.
even consider those like Marvel movies because they kind of like they're kind of doing their own
They are
thing
a
to
little
some degree.
separated.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
kind of like about them that they're separated. Is
yeah.
like I kind of enjoy that it's not like, hey, there's a prerequisite. You have to do some reading before you come into this. And like,
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
to give a shit what She-Hulk is
Well, and
doing. I don't. I
there's
don't give a
comics
fuck.
like that. There's
I
comics like
know.
that too.
Oh yeah. Well, I like to. One of my favorite directors got into the Marvel universe, Taika Waititi. I
He
liked
did.
that,
And then got out.
and then got out in a
Got out.
spectacular fashion. You
Yeah.
could tell he did not want
Fucked
to make
up.
that second one.
Fucked up Thor and was like, all right then, let's get on out of here. People
It
did
was
not want to,
awesome.
did not share my vision
Yeah,
of Thor. I feel
Love
like
and
we're just
Thunder
gonna,
was.
we need to,
Oh yeah, we're just
we're gonna
trashing on
start
Marvel for a
talking about
second.
Marvel movies, which actually does segue into what we're going to talk about tonight because the director of tonight's film was a big DC comic books fan, which
Oh, now
to
that
get
I
us
did not
back, there's some research for you. To get us back on track though, and segue from comic books to tonight's subject, which is George Miller and his first movie, Mad Max. Um,
Mhm.
did you get to watch the Superman trailer yet, Dom? Because there's no
Yes, I
one else
did.
in the world I would like to talk about the Superman trailer more than with you.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
what were your thoughts on James Gunn's Superman? And shit, I just talked about Guardians. See, this is Travis is talking about how I do segues without even intending it.
Yep.
Segued from Guardians to James Gunn's Superman. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on James Gunn's Superman so far?
Okay.
Having seen what we've seen.
Right. So this part I knew already. I'm not
Oh.
crazy about the suit.
All right, fair enough.
Apart from that, everything else looks fine. And
Yeah.
good even.
Yeah.
I am excited. I'm not going to lose my shit because Crypto has long hair instead of short hair. I'm
Don't
glad that Crypto, it's based on his own personal dog, the way
Yeah.
Crypto looks.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
of
Apart
course.
from, he made him white, his dog's brown, but
Yeah.
his shape and his hair is based on his dog. And I'm just glad that Crypto's in it. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
finally a comic book movie that's not embarrassed to be a comic book movie. Well,
Yeah.
we've seen
Yeah.
this with James Gunn's Marvel
Exactly.
work
Yeah.
with he's not afraid to put Howard the Duck
Nope.
and
Oh
Cosmo,
yeah.
Cosmo the space
I was
dog.
about to say
Mhm.
Cosmo has a large role in
Yeah.
Guardians.
Yeah. So the suit is this weird combination of the new 52 suit, but with the trunks and the Kingdom Come S. So I don't know what the fuck's going on there, but I still like it better than the Man of Steel Henry Cavill suit.
Yeah.
All of these
The-
Snyder bros who are whining
Yeah.
on Twitter about we need to restore the Snyderverse and let him complete his saga. Fuck you, fuck Henry Cavill, fuck Snyder, all the way to hell. I have optimism about this movie. I think James Gunn probably has a better understanding of Superman and probably believes in Superman.
Yeah.
Mhm.
James Snyder does not believe in heroes. He's the right person to direct Watchmen, but not the right person to direct Superman. You have
Yeah.
to believe in heroes if you're going to direct Superman.
Mhm.
So
Next to the
I-
Owl movie, Watchmen is Zack Snyder's best movie. Next to the Owl movie, the Owl movie I think is his best movie. I'm not even
the
lying.
owl.
He
I
directed
don't
it.
think
He
I've
directed an
seen-
Owl movie with for kids.
Wait, is
Uh,
that one of the Guardians?
yeah, Legends of the
thing?
Guardians.
Yes.
Like that movie's not bad for a Zack Snyder
Yeah,
movie.
I know what you mean.
I have not
I
actually
kinda
seen
like-
that one.
I
kinda
kind of
like it too.
I kind of like Sucker Punch.
Oh, I hate that movie.
But
Oh, really?
I do not like
The
Sucker
Carla
Punch at all.
however
I
you
can't
pronounce her name.
blame you.
It has Jenna Malone. Even that didn't pull me in.
I
No?
can't blame you for not liking it, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So,
I really like the Superman trailer. Travis,
Oh,
we'll get to
yeah.
your thoughts here in a minute. I thought it was similar to what you said, Dom. It gave me hope for a Superman movie, and for a superhero movie in general, for something different. Because the like we were just talking about with the Marvel movies, the formula has
Yeah.
kind of worn thin, and
Mhm.
it no longer really interests a great number of people, myself included.
Yeah.
Travis, your thoughts?
yeah.
Yeah, I would say, when I was younger and more, I don't know, more of an asshole. I didn't like Superman all that much. I thought he was kind of lame, but now I'm just like, hey, he's cool. He's good. It's a good time, and I'm excited that they're including Guy Gardner in there. That's going to be fun because you know, he's kind of
Yeah,
he's an
yeah.
asshole,
I
but
it- funny that you
so that'll be
mentioned that
fun.
because I just last week I mentioned that there's no way Green Lantern will ever
Oh
show up in
yeah,
a movie ever again, and then there he is. I was like, immediately, I was like, well, fuck, I feel like a
It's a
dumbass.
green. It's a Green
A
Lantern.
Green Lantern, yeah.
It should have been
yeah.
Nathan. It should have been Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan, and
I
he
think
has
so.
done Hal Jordan in cartoons.
That's right. He has.
Yeah. So,
So
the other thing is that this Superman movie has a kaiju in it, so we have an excuse to talk about it
hey,
on Monster
Hey.
Movie Fun Time Go,
There you go.
which you can
Nice.
find at mmftg.com and at patreon.com/mmftg.
nice. Very subtle.
Ching.
Oh yeah, we need a soundboard.
I don't have one yet. It's a shame.
Oh no,
It's not.
I don't think
I
we
don't
should.
need one.
But
All right, so Superman aside, let's talk about what we're going to get into tonight because this is the first podcast of the new year for us, as well as the first time that we're going to talk about a heavy hitter for our show. We're going to talk about Mad Max, and not only are we going to talk about the first Mad Max, we're going to spend the next month of January talking about all of the Mad Max movies. So
yes,
we're going to talk about this one. We're going to talk about Road Warrior, the Mad Max 2. We're going to get Beyond Thunderdome. And then we're going to join the Fury Road with Tom Hardy. And then end our journey with the newest entry, which I myself have not even seen yet. So you'll get my initial reaction to it because I have been intentionally not watching it for this reason. Thinking to myself, when would be a good time to start these movies? And January seemed like a good time. So,
yeah,
um, wow, how do you? There's so much to talk about when it comes to the
yes.
background of Mad Max. It's kind of don't even know where to start. I guess we just start with the director.
I think that's a
So
great place to start.
let's talk about his
Yes.
best movie, which is Babe Pig in the City.
Babe
So
2.
go.
Yep. Babe
Yeah.
2. Babe 2. Pig in the City. Uh,
That's a funny. There's a classic
isn't
statement,
isn't
which is there is to say there's a classic statement that all directors and writers are only capable of writing one unique story, and every outing they do is just retelling that story in a different way. And I really like to think of that with George Miller, that Happy Feet and Babe Pig in the City are just versions of Mad Max in his own weird way. That's the
I
only
like that.
way, because he jumps between these two genres of children's movies
right.
and post-apocalyptic movies in a real
Mhm.
fun way. And he also directed 3,000 Years of Longing, which is kind of its own separate thing. So
Which I still haven't seen.
all I
it's
all I
pretty
really
good.
remember is that Mickey Rooney was in it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, yeah, my first introduction to George Miller and the Mad Max universe was actually on a TV show we've already talked about on this podcast, Joe Bob Briggs' Monster Vision.
mhm.
One day after watching pro wrestling on WCW, shortly thereafter, they followed it up with some Monster Vision, and the movie of that night was, I believe it was Beyond Thunderdome, and that was the first Mad Max movie I saw, and ever since then, I loved me some Mad Max. So yeah, my entry
Mhm.
to Mad Max was probably one of the not best movies in the series, but
Yeah,
uh,
that's a rough start.
yeah, that was my
Well,
introduction
it's
to his movies and
not that bad.
in the series itself. Not that bad in all things
No.
respective. Now, not knowing at the time that I had already seen Babe Pig in the City and Babe 2 in theaters, did not know
Mhm.
that it was the same director for years. I think I was in college when that was one of those like IMDb late night like look up like who directed Mad Max? Oh, George Miller. Oh, what else did he direct? Fucking Babe Pig in the City. Like what? Like that was one of those things of realizing those two things. But Travis, what were your first
Oh,
entry into this world of Mad Max and the movies of George Miller?
first intro was definitely because I saw Mad Max long before I saw Babe Pig in the City. It was because it would be just come on TV or one of the movie channels like HBO or something, and I believe I saw this Mad Max, the first one. I believe I saw it first, but it was more than likely it was Road Warrior. I was just too young to really know the difference. So I But once I realized what I was watching, it was Mad Max. Like
Yeah.
that was the first one was my intro. So
Yeah, before we go to
um,
Dom, I was gonna say a lot of people when they envision this universe, I think Road Warrior is where their mind
mhm,
goes to, and you
yes,
Yeah.
completely forget that there was a movie that came before it. Because this movie,
yes,
I you could watch this movie and not have any idea that it was a post-apocalyptic movie, and you would get by just fine.
mhm.
It's a part of the movie, but it is not a main part of the movie. In fact, it doesn't look like most post-apocalyptic movies
It's
does.
not.
No,
Well,
It
it's
just
not.
looks like, well, it's not. Yeah, we'll get to that.
well,
It just
yeah,
kind of
that's
looks
part
like
of it.
70s Australia. But Dom, what was
Yeah.
your entry into the Mad Max world?
I think I saw Road Warrior first. I certainly saw it more
Mhm.
because you see, when I was a boy, you couldn't just watch anything you wanted when you wanted. So
Mhm.
Road Warrior came on HBO a lot. And I knew it was Mad Max 2. They didn't call it Mad Max 2 here in America. They just called it the Road Warrior.
Yes,
But I
sir.
Yeah.
knew Mad Max existed and I think I'd seen parts of it, but you couldn't just grab it and rewatch it. And for the longest time when you did see it, it was the American dubbed version
Yeah.
I remember
because
that.
the American release, they thought the Australians were incomprehensible, so they they dubbed it
They did. They
with
did.
American. They got Mel, I think, to dub Max's part. I think, I'm not sure, but everybody else was just different people with American accents. So I definitely saw Road Warrior a lot on HBO. Not always from the beginning. That was another thing. If the movie was on partway through, you might just jump in and
Yeah.
watch the rest of it. But eventually I saw Mad Max in its entirety, and then years later was able to I think I had to buy it, but was able to see the original Australian soundtrack.
Mhm.
But but I saw Beyond Thunderdome in the theater.
Ooh.
eh, But I don't think I saw I didn't see Road Warrior in the theater. I just watched it on HBO a lot.
Mhm.
Nice. Nice.
So
Yeah, originally when Mad Max came out, went to the American audience. We'll talk about the specific day, and we'll do some trivia with Travis about the movie, about the songs that were in the top five. That should be what the name of this segment. Trivia with Travis. It's a tongue twister.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, the original audio was dubbed. Actually, the Laserdisc version of it that I own. This is another Laserdisc. I own 5 Laserdiscs. This is one of them,
Mm.
along with Showgirls and DEFCON 4.
there's a
And
laser
Nice.
disc of Showgirls.
there is, and it has a pullout, like a vinyl pullout, and the pullout is Elizabeth Berkley doing the splits. It's pretty
That
impressive.
seems well. It seems too late in the day for it to have had a laser disc, but
I,
there you
you
go.
know,
Hey, I mean,
Laserdisc. Yeah, yeah. So Mad Max Laserdisc that I own, which I cannot watch because I do not own a Laserdisc. If any of our fans would like to send me a Laserdisc player, though, I will gladly accept one. I have
yeah.
always looked for one, never been able
Oh
to find
man.
one in the wild. Never found one in
See,
the wild.
do you have any experience with Laserdisc, Matt? Like
Yeah, yeah.
watching them at all?
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
because
My whenever I went to a what you call a fancy learning school. It was
mhm.
a elementary school that had a grant program, and we had an aerospace teacher. And one of the things he did with the grant money was he bought a laserdisc player for the
Mhm.
students, and he used to show us all these NASA documentaries on laserdisc, and he would teach us like how to change the laserdisc, how to
Yes,
clean the
like on the
laserdisc. It's like a record player. Yeah.
yeah, see, because I remember, because I think we're not that far apart, like school wise, I guess, like in age.
Mhm.
So we kind of encountered that because I went through the whole gamut of the reel to reel projecting,
Yeah.
videos on
Mhm.
the like
Yeah.
the whatever you call it, the thing that they would pull down the
So yeah,
screen.
those were phasing out right
Screen.
when I was in elementary,
Yeah,
and then my elementary school, like I said, we got Laserdisc because we
yeah,
had a grant money from someplace,
because I think that's whenever I was
and
in
then it
San
was
Antonio.
VHS.
Whenever yeah, San Antonio I think was rich enough to have Laserdisc, and I remember them doing like the having like this booklet and just being like, okay, I gotta go to this menu, type 5236 or whatever, and then hit enter and then go to this
Yep,
menu
yep.
to watch this part. Yeah, I remember all that.
Yeah, yeah. It was very silly. It was very
But I
silly.
think yeah, Dominic, you missed out on all that, right? Like school wise.
Um, I think VHS was So when I started school, it was reel to reel.
Hmm.
And as a child, for birthday parties, we'd have a slumber party, and you could check out a reel to reel machine and 3 movies from the library.
Awesome.
So
Oh,
we would,
really?
yeah, we would do that. But by the time I was in high school, there were VHS players,
Yeah.
but not in every room. You had
Oh,
to,
no.
wheel the cart down the hall if your teacher was going to show a video.
Yeah,
Hmm.
same,
And
same, same.
and I had that
Yep.
thing. I think I'm too old now. And well, also TVs are different now. So the younger listeners may not be aware of this. With an old cathode ray TV, sometimes you could just hear that the TV was on, not the audio playing from the TV. Like if you had the sound turned down, there was this high pitched sound, and it tended to
Hmm.
happen with older TVs.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's
Excuse
like
me.
the
So
tube warming up or something.
right. Well, just walking down the hallway, I could tell if there was a TV on in one of the rooms down the hallway because because it wasn't even playing anything yet. It was just on. And I
Yes.
remember
Nice.
sometimes at home saying, "Dad, can't you hear that? Why is the TV on? Can't you hear that?" He's like, "No, I can't hear it." But I think this is similar
Oh.
to a thing I've heard about more recently, that um, there's like a tone on your phone that kids use that
Hmm.
adults can't hear, and I'm
Huh.
like, "Oh, that must be the same frequency
Yeah.
as what
I think
I,"
that's
and
right.
Interesting.
that's why my dad couldn't hear that the TV was on and I
Hmm.
could.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, the older we get, the lower, or like,
Yeah,
certain frequencies, just we can't hear them
yeah.
anymore.
But I'm guessing that modern TVs don't do that.
Yeah.
I
But if they
can't
do, I'm
imagine that
probably
they
too
do.
old to hear it.
Right.
So
They could tell us, and they could totally gaslight us.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
That's
right.
true. So, in addition to George Miller directing those films, like I said, he directed all the Mad Max movies. And I think the interesting thing about the Mad Max movies is A, there's 5 of them, and B, they all have the same director, which is kind
Yes.
of cool for a series to have like a
Hmm.
completion like that. Most of the time, you get like the director leaves or the project never gets finished, calling back to Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you kind of don't really get to see like whatever the vision they had in mind was. But we've gotten to see his complete vision. I don't know if we're ever going to get another Mad Max movie before he dies. Dude is getting pretty old.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
maybe
Well,
he'll do one more, but
it's especially interesting because we switched Maxes, but we didn't switch directors.
Oh,
true.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Had to, honestly. We'll get to that here in a minute. So in addition to those movies, George Miller was rumored at one point to be the director for the Batman movie in 2022, the one I still have not watched, as well as he was going to direct the movie Contact, the Jodie
Oh.
Foster, Matthew McConaughey movie.
Hmm.
In fact, the only reason he was able to get the rights for the Mad Max movies back from Warner Brothers was because he willingly stepped away from Contact, and they hired a
Okay.
different director. And because of that, he got the rights back to his movies. So kind of like a weird little reverse way to doing that. But yeah,
Yeah.
pulled that off. Before becoming a director, he worked as a doctor, which is kind of
Yeah.
an interesting thing. I think he kind of took a lot of the experiences of working as a doctor, especially with a lot of the car crash victims he had seen,
Hmm. Yeah, that
Yes,
into
that
was
was
this movie.
his
Yeah,
specific. Yeah.
that was the inspiration.
yeah, yeah. The
Hmm.
inspiration for this kind of film here is losing a lot of the friends there, and then also, like I said, kind of seeing a lot of those roadside victims. He also actually
Yep.
worked as a roadside doctor, which was kind of like a thing in Australia where his friend who was actually ended up being the producer of the movie would like listen to the police intercom to overhear car crashes, and then they would drive to the car crash to help the victims there.
Hmm.
That's how
They
they
didn't
made money
There,
have
for a while.
there,
ambulance and paramedics
there
back then?
wasn't a
I guess because
right.
Australia is so
It's-
remote that like getting to an
Oh, okay.
ambulance might be like near impossible, especially
I
back in the
see. All right.
70s. I would guess 60s and 70s it was probably even more remote.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That's my estimation. I don't know. I
That
didn't do
makes
too
sense.
much research as to why that job was a thing, but
Right.
when I lived in California, I lived in kind of a remote part of Central California, and up
Hmm.
to the northeast of us was a mountain, And one of the jobs that I applied for was actually working as a mobile librarian for this little mountain community up in California, where my job would be daily to drive this van that was a mobile library to this small little village and then drive it around town so that the people could have like access to a library. Yeah, I didn't get
Huh.
the job, but that was the job basically because you had to be able to like fix the car in case it broke down because you're in the
Oh.
middle of nowhere. Like you are up a
Oh.
mountain. So if it breaks down, like good luck. Like so yeah, that was an interesting job. So I imagine something similar here, like just kind of being very remote and people need a doctor.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's really
So
cool.
yeah. And yeah, the post-apocalyptic aspect of this movie, and the only reason it's being talked about in this podcast, and maybe the least post-apocalyptic movie we've talked about so far,
Mm-hmm.
which is saying something because we talked about fucking Armageddon.
Yeah, right.
Armageddon introduces the end of the world within the first few seconds of the movie. This movie, you could literally watch the entire movie, and it's such a little plot point of it. And in fact, I think it was only incorporated after in the initial writing phase. It was only incorporated whenever they realized that like they didn't have the budget to afford like big
Mm-hmm.
cities or like big buildings or anything of the sort that they really
Yeah.
needed to tell
And a
this
lot of
story.
people.
And a lot of people, yeah. So how do you fix that problem? Set it in the post-apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of relate. The first little movie I tried to make in Texas was also a post-apocalyptic. Though mine was a zombie movie, but similarly, I had a cast of like 6 people. So like, what are you going to do with 6 people if you're not doing a weird indie drama? Is just make a post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah.
Society is falling apart, but it still exists. Everything's
Yeah.
really kind of shitty, but it's still holding on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we want to get into this yet, but this is part of my insight that I had
Yeah.
the last time that I watched this, when I had a marathon a few years ago when the new one was about to come out, that Max is actually part of the problem.
Oh.
Okay. I
I
like
could
it.
see that.
I like it.
So I don't know if we want to get into the plot first, or do you?
Yeah,
want me
let's
to
get into
address
the
that
plot
next,
first.
or-
I would say plot first. So,
Okay.
Yeah, let's get into the
I
plot
guess
first.
before we
So-
get to that, but
Oh,
we're
go
going to
ahead.
get into, I guess, yeah, George Miller.
Oh, I still had more to say about him.
Yeah, there's still
research.
more to say about George
I
Miller.
was going to say, originally the movie was going to be a silent movie, which I thought was kind of unique.
Okay, now that I
Um,
didn't hear.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. So originally the movie, he envisioned it to be almost a near silent movie with the music and minimal dialogue telling the story along with visuals, which you can
Ah.
kind of see. And they actually
Yeah.
reference it at one point where one of the characters comments to Goose and Max, like he says, your Goose is limp and Max is mute. That was kind of supposed to that was a part of the script that he forgot to change, I think.
Oh.
That references where Max was supposed to be a near mute character that just didn't talk a whole lot.
Well,
Ended up not happening
that
like that
that idea definitely comes back
in the second one.
the
Yeah.
third, the
Yeah.
fourth movie.
Oh yeah,
Fourth.
yeah.
Yeah.
He reviews
hardly
it a
says
couple.
fucking anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say he kind of comes back to this theme of like of having a main character that is basically like mute several different times, in the Mad Max series, and large portions of Road Warrior as well. He goes without speaking. So I think like Beyond Thunderdome is kind of like a notable exception there. So the movie cost $350,000 American to make. And for a long time, up until Blair Witch Project, it was the most successful independent film ever made because of how much money it made against its budget. It made a lot of money, still is making money to this day. They still make money off of Mad Max. It showed up in Space Jam, the most recent Space Jam. Had Mad Max characters in it watching LeBron James play basketball alongside the Night Watchers and the Looney Tunes and the It Monster and every other the Batman, every other Warner Brothers IP that they own was all just hanging out in Space Jam. So yeah, the Mad Max movies have continued to make money over and over and over again, which is interesting because originally during the filming of this movie, he almost stepped down from directing it.
Oh.
He got his vision called into question a couple of times because he was obviously new to directing, didn't really know how to do it, didn't have storyboards or really like clear, concise ideas of what we're shooting today and what order we're shooting things. Kind of just filmed things and figured it out in editing and afterwards, which frustrated a lot of the people he was working with because they kind of felt like we're just out here in the middle of nowhere helping this guy do nothing and we're getting largely paid in beer. So yeah,
Australia.
Australia. And actually to save money, all the bikes they had them just drive down themselves, which kind of created the problem of the biker gang becoming like a little gang. So much so that they apparently like hazed the shit out of Mel Gibson. And he hated all of like just hated them. So speaking of Mel Gibson, I guess we've stalled long enough. Let's talk about Mad Max himself. Mel Gibson,
Yeah.
the other major
Yeah.
part of the first three movies that we have to talk about, the big anti-Semitic bear in the room, if you will. So, what do you want to say about Mel Gibson? I can go first, I guess.
Yeah, that's safe.
He for me is the test of can you separate art from artists because dude has directed some fantastic fucking movies.
Yeah.
I love Apocalypto. I think Apocalypto is one of my favorite movies of all time. Braveheart is another amazing movie. He's done a lot of really good movies, and of course, What Women Want. You can't forget about that one. But also a confirmed anti-Semitic, a little bit of a racist, a racist, a little bit of a racist. But he's made a good movie or three. That's how I feel about him. He's one of those actors that for a while he used to really only do good movies, and then kind of has shown up in some shit since then. But go ahead, Travis, what you got?
Well, I was gonna say, luckily with that whole separating art from artist, I liked everything he did before we knew he was an anti-Semite. So I think that's good. I think like I can separate it that
Apocalypto
way.
came out afterwards, though.
Did it?
Yeah, it did. It was the very first thing he did afterwards.
There goes that theory. So, well, I guess that's the only one that I really have to contend with because everything before that, though, I mean, I always liked everything he did, and but I didn't really think much about him as a person ever. Just thought of him as just the character.
Yeah.
In the movie, so that made that easier.
I like
him
his
as the director.
I was gonna say I like his movies as director way more than him as an actor. Like The Patriot and movies like that, I don't really have any special affinity for.
No, yeah, no.
But as a director, he like Braveheart is a really good movie.
Yeah, even though historically troublesome, but or
troublesome,
troubling.
but entertaining as fuck.
Oh yeah, very entertaining. Oh yeah, no, he can put a story together, an interesting story, and just what he did to Robert the Bruce, it's not cool. But anyway,
Dom, what you got about Melly Gibson?
I forgot about Braveheart. That movie's straight up bullshit.
I felt that coming. I don't know why.
Everything about it is wrong. But here's
except
the thing.
for Sophie Marceau.
Mel has a certain charisma that makes you want to watch him, and it makes people inclined to forgive him or overlook things because he's so interesting to watch, because you can't help but want to like him, and maybe you can make yourself dislike him when you find out that he's said racist and anti-Semitic things, and he usually ends up apologizing, but that's still that was inside of you. Maybe you were drunk, but it came out, that was inside of you. But and he still continues to work, so there's people who know him or work with him are still willing to work with him, whereas there's perfectly good reasons not to. I remember years ago watching movies like is it Payback?
Yeah.
Payback. Payback, he's playing really a bad person, but you still end up rooting for him.
Mhm.
And I remember watching Waterworld and thinking, if this was a Mad Max movie and it was Mel Gibson playing this exact same script,
You
we
would
would
like him more.
like that. We would like this character.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Kevin Costner doesn't have the innate charisma that Mel Gibson has.
No.
He does not.
So, uh, and then as I was watching the movie, I was enjoying it by pretending it was Mad Max and trying to
Oh, that's good.
rewrite in my head. And I even was like, oh, if this was a Mad Max movie, he wouldn't have got on the balloon at the end. He would have been left behind standing on the deck of the ship as the balloon floated away. And there'd be a
Mm.
voiceover saying, and we never saw the mariner again, but we always kept the light on for him. So I certainly enjoy Mel Gibson's work, even if
Mhm.
I am occasionally disappointed by his behavior.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
there you
I
go.
like it. I feel like
Yeah.
that's a fair assessment of Mr. Melly Gibson, an actor
think so.
that we will talk about again when we get to Apocalypto, which
yeah.
is its own controversial little mess of a movie, but it's a movie
Yeah.
that I do appreciate. I do appreciate it.
Mhm.
Speaking of things I appreciate, Travis, it's time for your trivia because we're about to get
I'm ready.
into the plot of this movie. So before we do that, we got to talk about the day this movie came out in America. It came out on February 15th, 1980.
1980. Okay.
1980. So, any guesses? Top 5
Oh,
songs.
top 5 songs in 1980. Oh, what's
1980.
happening?
There's one person
Um.
that you always guess every single time that is actually this time on
Oh,
the
is it?
list.
Oh, finally Michael Jackson.
It's finally Michael Jackson at number 5. There you go.
Is
Rock
it?
with You
Oh,
is number 5. Michael
wait. Which
Jackson.
song?
Rock with You.
Rock with You.
Yeah,
Don't know that
Rock
one.
with You. Oh, it's a good one.
I
Is it?
want to rock with you
Yeah, there you go.
all night.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
that. Oh, okay.
Dancing
Okay, I do know it. I
to
don't know why I spaced out. I think because when I said that, I just kept thinking of "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough." Like that was the song that started in
Oh,
my head,
yeah,
and then I
that's
was like,
fair.
"Well, nothing else is gonna happen." So, but because that's my favorite Michael Jackson song.
All
Um,
right. Number 4.
Speaking
Any
of
guesses here?
problematic people,
yeah, right.
There you go. Number
In,
4. Any
in Death All
guesses?
Sins, right? Um, but I got no
Number 4
guesses on
threw
number
me
4.
off. I was not gonna think number 4 would show up in the 1980s, but he did. Did.
Mm, he?
It is a he. I believe he's dead, but I believe they
Oh,
identified as he when they were alive. Yes.
David Bowie?
No, Smokey
No.
Robinson.
Oh,
Cruising.
oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Smokey Robinson song in the 1980s. Did not see that coming.
Hmm.
Number 3 is country. A 1980s country.
Oh, 1980 country Willie Nelson?
Close. Kenny Rogers.
Really close. Kenny Rogers. Okay.
Yep. Coward of the Country.
I don't know that one.
county, coward of the county.
Coward of the County. Sorry. Apologies.
He's not the
Apologies.
coward of the entire country, merely
Well,
his
we,
county.
we don't know about
He's-
Kenny. You know,
I
he
was
knows
gonna
when to fold
say.
him. And he knows when to fold him. Number 2 is a classic 70s 80s rock band. They recently made a movie about the lead singer.
The lead singer? Oh,
Recently, as
Queen?
in like, yeah, I was gonna say recently, as in like the last decade. I say
I was
that,
gonna
I
say
don't know when
I'd
that
have to
movie
go by
came
your
out.
definition of recent.
It's true.
Queen?
Queen? Yes, Queen was
Is it
at number
Queen?
2.
With
Yeah,
what?
crazy
What was
little
the song?
thing called Love.
Crazy
Oh,
little
okay.
thing called love.
Yes, sir.
Crazy little
And
thing called
number
love.
1 is a group. It's a lounge act. I don't know if they're a lounge act. Actually, I'm just saying that, but
Okay,
they
that
sound
was-
like a. I've heard of them. I've heard their names 100 times, and I've heard several of their songs. Oh, just by being a human being.
Mhm.
But I think like my grandmother listened to them.
Captain and Tennille?
Exactly, Captain and Tennille,
Oh,
right on the fucking head. Holy shit!
I would say Lounge Act, yeah.
Do That to Me One More Time is the name of this song.
Do
Mm.
it to me one more time. Once is never enough.
I think we have
With the
found
hidden
Dom's like
light.
perfect time period
I
for
was gonna
music.
say.
Like, 1980 was your period, apparently.
I guess so. Did not
You
realize
know,
it.
you know your 1980s. All right, we're gonna
Well-
take a little break, and we'll come back and talk about the plot of Mad Max.
Yeah.
Happy face, ooh, lion face. Hey, my name is Matt.
Hey, it's Travis.
And we are the hosts of Welcome to the End of the World podcast, where every week we talk about movies about the end of the world. Sounds depressing. We try to make it not. It's a fun time. You should come give us a listen. Don't you think so, Travis?
I think so.
Yeah, and he's a doctor. Welcome back to the show. We're going to talk about the plot of Mad Max and then end the show by talking about our feelings. So here we go. Our feelings about the movie, not just our feelings in general. Just so we're clear, you know. Although that would
Feel
be
kind
something.
of
Maybe, you know what?
unfulfilled.
We'll talk about both. We'll talk about our
You
feelings
know.
in general. Are you unsettled? How do you
A little
feel
bit
right
of a
now?
therapy sesh.
Yeah.
Distressed.
Distressed. Unwell. Okay. So the movie opens with the police chase, and they're going after, of course, every movie needs a fuel injected suicide machine. And so when you need one of those, you have to call one in. And we get the Knight Rider, who honestly looks more like Tom Hardy than anybody else in this fucking movie does. And it's kind of threw me off at first because I started watching it immediately. I was like, wait a minute, that's not Tom Hardy. But damn it, it kind of looks like it could be Tom Hardy. But yeah, so the movie starts with the police force of this post-apocalyptic wasteland chasing the Knight Rider, and we immediately get an idea of how this movie is shot with its action scenes, and immediately I'm all in. I love the way this movie is filmed.
Yes.
It's like Evil Dead for that way with me. Where like within the first few minutes of watching Evil Dead, you get a sense for like how the director is choosing to film things, and it's either you like it or you don't like it. And same thing with Evil Dead. I really like the way this movie is filmed. I love all the car chase scenes. I love the coyote eyes at the end of it. All of it is very very fun. So as Knight Rider is heading towards civilization, we see that a few of the wrecks that really this movie is known for. So they destroyed, I think, about 14 or 15 cars in the process of filming this movie, including the director's own car.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're gonna
Totally fair.
wreck people's shit, you might as well start with your
Yeah.
own. You know.
Yeah. Can't ask
Yeah.
anyone to do what you're not willing to do yourself.
Yeah. So this movie has some fun, intense car wrecks, and most of them. This movie was shot mostly guerrilla style, which means they didn't get permits. There was no stunt coordinators. There was one camera.
Jesus.
There was one take. That was kind of a lot of it. And so that's a lot of what you're seeing is that it's kind of fun to watch. They don't make movies like this anymore, as they say, largely because
Well,
it would be you'd be arrested.
Not
You'd be-
legally allowed to.
it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I
like,
was
you'd be
gonna say,
arrested
yeah.
usually. Yeah.
For
The
a
fact
lot
that
of good
nobody
reason.
got killed making this movie is fucking
Yeah.
insane.
Yes.
Like the
Yeah.
fact that nobody died making this is really, really, really insane. Because it very
Yeah.
easily could have gone the other way, where this movie
Yeah.
didn't get completed, and instead it just resulted in like 6 people dying. But
And it's
somehow-
funny that it
somehow
was
pulled it
made
off.
by a doctor. It was like, here, go
was.
put yourself in harm.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's,
The-
it's okay. I'm a doctor. It's okay.
Do they not have the Hippocratic Oath? Like, because they were doing harm. I'm
But
not
he
supposed
didn't. He
to.
managed not to.
Oh, well,
we
that's
also
true.
get we get not only do we get introduced to Knight Rider, but we also get introduced to some of our bumbling police officers who are going to be kind of the background characters for this
Oof.
story, as well as Goose, our sidekick.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
It
go ahead.
it would have been better if they had just let him go and gone arrested him later, as often
Right.
is in real life. Like, this
Yeah.
chase is not necessary. You know where he lives. Just go arrest him later.
But they
You're just
but,
endangering civilians.
but they have 100% snafu.
Yeah.
100% snafu on our hands, Max.
Yeah.
And so this is how Mad Max, or Max as he's called at this point. He's not quite
Yeah.
mad yet, but he'll get there.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is how he's introduced into the film, with a 100% snafu on the police's part. And so he and Knight Rider play a little game of chicken, and this causes Knight Rider to lose and go into emotional just breakdown. Just
Yeah,
loses
that's
his shit.
happened.
All because he
He
lost
was-
a game of chicken. Just goes from being like, I'm a shit talking god of thunder to
Yes.
I'm just a little bitch man. I need to die like within seconds. All
Yeah.
because he lost a game of chicken.
He's very emotionally unstable. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
clearly.
Yeah. I think you know it's the director trying to tie the masculinity into the cars, right? You know,
Yeah.
his
Mhm.
masculinity has been challenged, and now he is no longer a man. And then, well, he's soon
Yes.
not going to be part of this world because he dies shortly afterwards.
Yep.
His Knight Rider is killed, and then we cut to Max at home, and we see a little bit of his home life. And this is the weirdest transition of the movie, as the
Yep.
music of the movie is wonderful, but the way the movie uses music is even funner because like it transitions, and you think like the jazz is just part of the soundtrack,
Mhm.
and then the camera
Right.
pivots over, and you see that
She's-
Max's wife is just
Yep.
playing some smooth
playing
fucking
saxophone.
jazz.
It just,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep. Just playing saxophone in the living room like you do in her shirt and underwear.
That's
Yeah.
how you swoon your husband, you know, just lay down a smooth, sexy jazz line before you go to make some babies in the other room. And so they sit and they watch the news and they see the story about Max and what everything that happened with the Knight Rider and everything. So this is where, as you were talking about, we get like pre-apocalypse because society is still somewhat intact. Like we have the news, the police are still there. There's judges, there's lawyers,
He's got a
there's
pretty
civil
nice house.
servants. He's got a nice house. He lives by the beach, right? Like,
Quite a bit of
there's-
land with that house.
Mhm.
yeah, he's doing pretty well for himself. For a police officer, I mean, shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's
Right.
doing pretty well. Doing very well. So then I wrote down this may be so far the least post-apocalyptic movie we have ever watched on this show.
Well,
And
because
that's
it
saying
wasn't
something.
originally.
It's true. It wasn't originally conceived to be post-apocalyptic. But yeah,
So that
maybe-
house that they're in, by the way, was they had gotten this house. It was completely empty. A lot of that furniture is George Miller's furniture.
that would make sense. That would make
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, it has a lot of like El Mariachi, Robert Rodriguez vibes, where a lot of the
Mhm.
stuff and things in the movie you can kind of tell like are just the things that the director owned
Yeah.
or had access to at that time.
Well, and like that saxophone was actually the actress's. That's just a thing she does.
I
Yeah,
that was-
assumed. I
Yeah.
assume that's just in there because she just knows how to play sax.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, we'll
yeah.
work it in. That's great.
That's what I
Production
would do.
value.
There you go.
And then that
there you
sign
go.
language she did, that also
Yeah.
wasn't real. She just made hand movements up.
I like that you investigated the hand movements. You were like,
I
"Nah,
did.
let's call bullshit on this one." The
Yeah,
hand
I was like,
movement's
oh,
real.
that's not.
I mean, when she points at him, that's a valid.
That's
sign.
the only
Just
one.
you.
Well, it's because she
So-
like counted out on her fingers. I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't
Yeah.
know sign language either, but I know that's bullshit.
Yeah, yeah. The way the movie edited is edited is also largely kind of a construction of the director having very limited resources. And like he
Mhm.
didn't storyboard out things, so he didn't go into the film knowing what scenes to look for. He just kind of had visions in his mind of like cool scenes and what they would look like, and then would piece them together via editing and kind of make a narrative. And that's kind of where the movie kind of you can see that a little bit on this one because it kind of jumps around a little bit. Like it'll be
Mhm.
like then because shortly after this, Max goes to work, which is what we get Max. So Max goes to work, and then he is they show him like just on the side of the road, and the cops show up and they're like, oh look, look at what he did. And this is another thing the movie does that's kind of seems a little weird where it repeats itself a lot, where there's
Mhm.
like it'll show like Max doing something and then he does it again, or it'll show like when Goose gets hurt, like he almost gets hurt and then he does get hurt. And then the same thing with his wife and the ice cream thing. Like at the end of the movie, she goes to get ice cream and she almost gets kidnapped and hurt. She doesn't, and then she does shortly for real a few minutes after
Yeah.
that. So it has a lot of these like he got both just in case one turned out shitty. And then when editing it was like, well, I'll just put both in. So the movie repeats itself a lot, which is kind of like one of the only shortcomings of this movie. And it just seems like, but it also kind of like in the amateurness of it, it does kind of make it kind of fun to rewatch because it does kind of have that like almost like Kevin Smith, Clerks, Reservoir Dogs, kind of like young person making a movie doing the best they can. And you
Mhm.
get to kind of see them kind of without a lot of filters and kind of fun. So Yeah. Excuse me. So the next big thing that happens in the movie is Toe Cutter's gang shows up, and Toe Cutter is a character that we've actually
Oh.
encountered on our podcast before. This is the same actor that showed up in Blood of Heroes, which is our most listened to episode. There's a little, which is also a Mad Max ripoff,
Yes.
which was filmed in Australia and features a lot of the same actors that were in this movie. The
See,
first
I
and
didn't
second
know
Mad
that was
Max.
filmed. I didn't know that was also filmed in Australia. I
Blood of
didn't go.
Heroes was filmed in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That makes
also
sense
used
when
to
you.
come on HBO.
Not by an Australian director, but in Australia. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Toe Cutter's gang shows up and they're looking for Knight Rider's body, and they're here to just cause general rowdiness, and they just kind of are fucking shit up and doing kind of obnoxious things, driving their motorcycles around, being just kind of general dick. Okay. So yeah, Toe Cutter's got this couple that they first encounter. Toe Cutter's gang encounters this couple, and the couple drives away from Toe Cutter's gang scared. And this is where the movie kind of starts to imply some violence, because when the gang catches up to them, we don't see them rape the
Mhm.
couple and beat them to death or anything
Right.
like that. But the movie shows you the aftermath afterwards
Yeah.
when
They don't
when Mel shows up.
They don't beat them to death, but it's heavily implied that they've both been sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Yes.
His pants are off and he's running away, and Goose is calling him a chicken, and then they're checking on the girl, and she's, I think, tied up, and
Mhm.
then Mel
She's
finds one of the
got a
gang
chain
members.
on her.
Yeah, chain around her neck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very, very similar to what we'll see in some
Would-
other Mad Max movies.
Yeah. Well, did you notice when that guy was running away, he looked like he had some blood between his legs?
I did
did not
notice that.
notice.
Yeah. I saw
So
that.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
heavily implied.
Yeah, which I do like that the movie does that rather than just like showing outright.
Yeah.
Especially considering we watched Texas Gladiators like a few
Yeah.
weeks ago, and that movie
The
just was
exact
like,
opposite.
let's just show you it. It's like, all right,
Yeah, like
then.
this is the main plot point, or this is what it's mostly about.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a
They
little bit of
misunderstood the assignment there.
Yeah.
So Mel and Goose, they encounter the first gang member and they take him into custody, and this is gonna
Johnny
kind
the
of
boy.
Johnny the
Johnny
yeah.
boy.
This
Johnny
kind
the
of
boy.
moves the plot forward quite a bit, because Johnny the boy, he's gonna get out of jail without really getting any kind of justice served, and this
Yeah.
infuriates Goose.
For some weird reason, has hung around while the rest of the gang is left.
Yeah,
It's not
I
clear
think it was
why
just he was tweaking
he's
out,
too
and I guess
stoned.
they just
Yeah.
left him.
He was too stoned
Yeah,
to get
he-
on his bike.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
like, he'll be fine. He'll just sit there and he'll come along when he comes to, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, he gets arrested, and then, like I said, he gets out from the justice system. He has some lawyers. Toe Cutter does, I guess, and they're able to get him out. Because they're able to get him out
No,
because no one comes to trial.
no one showed up to testify.
Yeah, no one shows up to testify against Toe Cutter's gang, so he's able to get out on a technicality, and this infuriates Goose. Goose loses his shit, tries to kill him. And so far, if you're watching this movie and you've never seen any Mad Max movies, you would think that maybe Goose is one of the main characters, because he gets
Right.
way more pissed about this than
Mhm.
Max
has-
does.
It has more dialogue.
He does.
Oh, yeah.
He does. And he is on the cover of the Laserdisc.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The like
Good
the
for him.
drawing of Max is like, it says Mad Max on it, but the cover is very clearly Goose, not Max. Like, it's got a helmet on, standing on top of a bike. Like, Max does none of those things. Like,
I've seen that poster.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right. You're
think-
right.
yeah, I
I
know what
never
you're
thought
talking
about
about.
that before, but I've
Yeah,
seen that
yeah.
poster.
Yeah.
I don't know why they have it set up like Goose is the hero, but similar to Top Gun, he's not. He's not going to be around for much
Yep.
long, because he's about to die. Because
No.
his well, he
Does
dies.
he?
sort of.
Does he ever actually die? I don't think he does.
He gets burned. I don't know if he dies. I guess he
still
gets
alive.
burned half to death.
Yes, he's still in the hospital.
True.
Maybe
True.
somebody.
True.
I can't
Does he
remember if they
die?
come to him later and say that Goose died, but he's in the hospital
not
on
sure.
a respirator.
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. So we cut to Goose after the guy gets out, and he's having a nice time at a nightclub, and then we cut to him going to work for a little ride
On the Licorice Road.
on the
You know,
Licorice Road.
I've seen this movie more than once, but there was big parts that I'd completely forgotten about. I had no memory of the nightclub singer, her
Mhm.
tune the licorice road.
Maybe the
Which
most.
I guess just means the highway. It's not. She's not singing about the Big Rock Candy Mountain or
No,
something.
no.
Right.
I think it's just the
Or the
licorice
Good Ship
road is the
Lollipop.
highway. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
insane.
may be one of the most pointless parts of this movie. Like you could completely
Yeah.
cut that out, and the movie would not suffer at all for it. But it's there. We get this whole
Yeah.
little scene, and then Goose gets on his bike, and this is where I was talking about. Like he gets into a car accident, and you think, oh, he's going to be hurt. No, he's fine. He gets picked
Yeah.
up, and he starts to drive, and then Toe Cutter's gang attacks, and then he gets cut. And this is when Toe Cutter tells the guy, what's his name again, Johnny
the
Boy, that this is a threshold moment.
Yes.
I love that. Love that part.
And Toe Cutter's great because he's also doing like a different accent in every
Yeah.
scene.
Well, he's a
That's
classically
awesome.
trained actor.
Yes.
He is a classically trained Shakespearean actor, and he's one of the only actors I think in this movie that had like, besides Mel Gibson, that had like real like experience.
Johnny the
Yeah.
Boy's. I think what was his name? He was also classically trained.
Yeah, I
Like,
was
he
gonna
was
say they were.
because
Yeah,
him and
which
Toe
is why
Cutter
they
like
were.
Shakespearean actors. I think.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why they were frustrated working with Miller at
Tim
first
Burton's.
because they were like, "You don't have your shit together. Like what are we
Yeah.
doing? Like we need to be directed. Tell us what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're not just here to fuck around." So,
Mhm.
but they all show up in movies of his later on. So I guess
Yes. I
they were
guess
patient
it
with
worked out.
him, and it worked out. Yeah,
Yeah.
works out when you're the one of the most successful movies of all time.
Right.
Maybe that little fucker knew what he was doing. Who knows? So this is a threshold moment, and whether he wanted to or not, Goose is cooked, and it is sent up in flames. And then we hard cut, and I love this scene because all you hear is the leather of Max and his boots coming down the hall, and it gets closer and closer and closer to the camera, and then he shows up in the hallway. That's like one of those scenes where you could see like the director wanted it to be like a silent movie, and the audio is like so important. I watched this on a brand new we just bought a house, and as our housewarming gift, my mother-in-law, she bought us a 55-inch TV and brand new speakers. So I watched Mad Max on Blu-ray, and it was very nice, and I could hear the audio, and I turned it up real loud. Like I said, I watched it just before I came up here. And the audio was really cool to hear that part because like you could hear the leather specifically. And yeah, as a person who works at a school, and then when I get there in the morning, there's like nobody, and I can like hear like my leather shoes going up and down the hall. It kind of reminded me of that. I was like, I know that sound. Did something for me. Did something for me there. So yeah.
Yeah.
Max shows up and he sees the aftermath of Goose and what Toe Cutter's gang did to him.
Oh, his reaction is just so inappropriate, I guess.
Yeah.
He's just like, that thing in there is not Goose. I'm like, whoa. There's still a person inside of that burned up body. He's not a thing.
Right.
He's your friend. Jesus Christ. He's going to need help recovering. And you're just like, it's making it all about him,
Yeah.
I was grossed out and upset by that. That thing is not Goose. I'm like, yes,
It's not Goose.
Yes, Max, it is. Max is kind of a selfish asshole, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, he's a terrible parent, and that much we'll definitely find out about. So he goes home from the hospital and he thinks about it, and he has bad dreams. And then him and his I don't know why I got Australian there. Him and his wife talk about it, and he decides he's going to go talk to his boss and quit the force. And this part made me kind of laugh because for whatever reason, when he shows up to talk to Fife, he looks like a leather daddy, like he's shirtless, wearing leather chaps, like
scarf,
big burly chest.
His boss Fifi.
Fifi.
With his scarf and no shirt.
No shirt on.
Is it?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I guess it's not cold, so why the scarf? It's just a fashion statement.
He's a leather daddy. That's what he likes.
Somebody else has the scarf. I think Goose has one at some point. I don't remember.
They just had one and passed it around to different characters.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Well, only one of them was wearing like genuine leather. Everybody else was wearing like vinyl or whatever. Like,
see, I read that too, but then Mel Gibson apparently said that was bullshit. That his outfit wasn't real leather either. So, either maybe none of them were real leather, or maybe Mel Gibson just doesn't know what real leather feels like. I don't know.
Right.
Who knows? But yeah, so Mel goes and talks to his leather daddy and tells him, I'm quitting. Leather daddy says, hey, why don't you take a 2-week sabbatical? Your best friend just died. 2 weeks paid vacation. Come back, think about it.
Yeah.
People
Takes
don't
him up.
believe in heroes anymore, Max. We
Yeah,
need
we do
ya.
get the hero scene. We do get the hero scene. And he's like, you don't really believe that shit, do you? And he's like, I'm just a leather daddy. I'm just here for a good
That's right.
time. Just here for some fun, Apparently that's all the police force does. They're not really forcing much police in this
Yeah, right.
universe.
They're just
The
chasing
Hall of
people
Justice
around.
in which nothing is done. So
At the
Max,
fucking police station.
it's the shittiest police station in the world. It's maybe the only
Ugh.
post-apocalyptic thing we get in this movie that's
Yeah.
like, all right, well, the police force is basically non-existent. Like they don't have
Yeah.
anything to go for.
They are building a
So
really cool car, though.
they do have a
Oh.
nice car. They do. But I think that's Knight Riders, isn't it? Didn't they take his? No, I don't remember.
It was something they were putting together. It was like because Goose was really excited to show it to Max. And
Yeah, it's Chekhov's. It's fucking dragster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
They keep
The
showing up
last
into
of
the
the
plot.
V8s. It's the last of the
last.
V8s.
that's right.
So the next big thing that happens is Max and family, they decide to go out of town. And I really like this part of the movie because I thought
Mhm.
this was the first part of the movie that like shows Max as like a family man, and you get an
Mhm.
idea of like what he actually is going to lose and how much like that would actually like suck. Like he's losing a wife, his kid, his whole little family he's got going here. Because previous to this, all we've seen them do is his wife plays jazz and he leaves her a lot. And every
Oh,
time
and
he
then-
leaves her, something horrible happens to her. He should probably not leave her.
Also, he has the gun. The kid just has a gun, just playing with the gun in the room.
Is that
At
not
the
what you're
beginning.
supposed to do? Is that not
Oh,
good
yeah,
police procedure?
Give.
They gotta
Is
learn
that-
sometime, man.
Is that
Yeah,
not what you're
right?
supposed to do as a police officer?
Yeah.
With your service revolver? Just have your
I
child
mean, just
play
be
with
like,
it?
here, just play with that for a little bit. Just stay right there.
Don't worry, it's not loaded. Bang!
All right, it's not loaded now.
Now it's not. Now it's not loaded.
So Max has to take the car to get some work because, he's on vacation, but he's still got shit to take care of, right? So he's had the car, has been needing to get some work done. So he's going to take it to get some work done. This is a part of the movie that also made very little sense because he's talking about getting work done to the car and looking at the tires and things like that. And then the wife is like, hey, we're going to take the car and go get ice cream down the street. But like you would need the car to do anything with the tires and the car. So why are they taking the car? That would make it very
Yeah, no.
difficult to work on the car.
Right. Oh no, he was gonna fix. I think he was gonna fix the spare tire. They put a
Is that
spare
what-
tire on. Yeah.
Okay.
The guy was gonna either fix their tire or replace it, and they had the spare on, so they could go
Okay.
get ice cream while they're fixing the tire.
Makes sense. That part was very confusing to me. So yeah, they go to get ice cream, and while they get ice cream, of course, they run into Toe Cutter and the gang.
Yeah.
And they get away, though. This is another part that I was talking about where, like, you think something bad's going to happen, like Toe Cutter's going to finally get Max's wife. But no, she gets away this time. She goes back to the place where Max is with the car and yells at him to get in. He gets in, and they take off, and they next go to the little farm where they've been meaning to go hang out for their little vacation here. And so they finally make it to the farm, and we get to see the little grandmother who's a wonderful little character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And we see more of Max interacting with his family, having some fun. Then she goes
There's
to the
also
beach.
another guy there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I guess
yeah.
it's the lady's kid, but like a
Yeah.
grown kid.
Yeah, he has special needs. I'm guessing
I
is what
think
they
s-
kind of
I
imply.
think that's what they're. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of implied that he's like a special needs kid that
You know.
or adult that they have with them. We don't really. He doesn't really talk much, if at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got one line, I think. One, possibly two.
Yeah, I was gonna
Right.
say he doesn't say much at all. So Max's wife once again leaves him. This is a common thing that keeps working out for the negative. She goes to the beach to go get some suntan, and she has to cross through this forest to do so. And of course, Toe Cutter and the gang start to show up again.
hmm
And she runs back, encounters Max. Max heads off into the forest to go look for them, only to find out that they're not actually there because as she gets back with the grandmother, we find out that they have the kid, and we get the little confrontation between Toe Cutter and Max's wife.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't last very long because Granny shows up with a fucking shotgun.
Yeah.
And she tells them all to get into the shed, and they all go in there. And that's probably like one of the funniest parts of the whole movie is that this grandmother is just like controlling all these grown
Mm-hmm.
thuggish men who look like they
Yep.
could kill anyone. So the shed
they
doesn't
don't have
hold
the
them.
guns.
No, they don't have guns. And Toe Cutter's scared of guns, as he says.
That's right.
Yeah.
And rightly so. They're dangerous.
Yeah.
Really so. They are dangerous. So then they get into Chekhov's car, and of course Chekhov's car is going to break down because we've been told this whole time, like, oh, they needed to get the car fixed. They never really got it fixed
Mhm.
here. So then Granny tells them to get out of the car and run, and we get one of the classic scenes of cinema as Max's family is finally mowed down. And same thing, we
Mhm.
don't see them, the violence of them. We don't even see their bodies. All we see
Nope.
is
No.
just the aftermath of a couple little
Shoe
remnants.
and a
We
yeah,
got a shoe.
shoe and a toy.
shoe. Yeah, a shoe and a toy to show that they're gone. And then Max comes running up wearing metaphorically all white to signify that he is a good character. And
Mhm.
he sees his wife's body. He screams out, and then shortly thereafter, he's going to switch to his all black attire. It's more a metaphorical changing of colors. Here we go. Lots of that coming out. You'll see some of that in Star Wars as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this director also loved himself some westerns, so lots of usage of white and black to signify different kinds
Mhm.
of characterization. And so from here on in, the movie is basically just a revenge movie of Max trying to
Yes.
mow down every single person in Toe Cutter's gang that he can until he gets to the final confrontation, which is Toe Cutter and Bubba. I think is it Toe Cutter and Bubba are the last two that are left.
Mhm.
No, Johnny.
Well, oh,
No,
Johnny's
yeah, no,
still
yeah,
there too.
Johnny's.
Yeah, he's still there as well. I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah, we also get a pathetic fallacy where we get a storm cloud shows up as Max as it transitions to the hospital scene where we find out that they're DOA and they're trying to think of how to tell Max. And yeah, I love a good pathetic fallacy where it's just a storm cloud to signify emotions.
Mhm.
Very visual, very very fun. It's a dark and stormy night for Max.
Mhm.
So
yeah.
he's like I said, he's gonna just mow down every single body, and then we get to the final confrontation, which is him and Toe Cutter, which is pretty fun. Although Max does get wounded beforehand,
Oh,
gets shot
yes.
in the knee, which gives him his limp that he has in subsequent movies with Mel Gibson. He has kind of a limp that he kind of always favors, and he takes down Bubba from the ground with a shotgun, which is kind of cool. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And then Toe Cutter gives him a little weird little lick of the thumb or lick of the lips or suck of the tongue, something like that. I forget what he does exactly, but it's a weird little facial thing that he does because the character is just very over the top.
Oh yeah.
And he takes off running away from Max. Max is able to get into his fucking car and runs him down until Toe Cutter is forced to crash into headfirst into another oncoming car. And we get
Mhm.
the coyote eyes from Looney Tunes, basically, as
Oh
he
yeah.
crashes and dies.
Right.
I was
And,
wondering what you meant by that at first.
Yeah.
yeah, its eyes get all
bulging-
huge. Yeah, the
Yes.
bulging eyes. Yeah.
Start bulging even though he hasn't hit anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's weird.
He's about to.
very
He
weird.
sees his death before
Yeah.
his eyes. He says, "Oh my,
Mhm.
you know." Yeah. And so,
And it's at which point do we get the crow? Is that when his family gets hit?
I think so.
When Toe
Yeah,
Cutter gets
Oh,
hit?
I think the crow's
just
when the
cut-
family gets hit. It cuts to like the
Yeah.
crow. Yeah. The
because that's when they're
metaphor.
by the beach or something.
Yeah.
And
Symbolism.
it was like interspersed with like I guess seagull sounds. It was also included. the
Yeah,
crow
well,
sounds.
you gotta have some seagulls and some crows, some different
yeah.
kinds of birdage, different
Mhm.
kinds of birds to represent the different birds of Australia. No, I don't know. So the
Well, it
movie's
was
not
like
over
you said,
yet,
that's
though.
symbolism. So
Yeah, you get some symbolism there.
yeah.
Movie's not over yet though because Max
Uh-huh.
still has one more person to take care of, And the movie circles back in on itself because after Max takes care of Toe Cutter, we just get some like montage scenes of him driving. And it seems like he's just driving endlessly and endlessly driving and kind of losing his mind a little bit as he just seems to be driving endlessly. Eventually, he does pop back up with the guy from the beginning of the movie,
Johnny the Boy.
and Johnny, yeah, and leaves him with two choices after stumbling upon him at the end of a wreck. And he's either changes him up to a burning fire or to a soon to be burning fire and tells him, look, you can either burn to death or you can cut your foot off. Choice is yours.
Well, he basically makes a fuse.
Yeah.
He sets up a light headlight with a hole in it to gather up the dripping gasoline and then puts something burning in it so that it will explode when it hits a certain point.
Yeah, because he said it's going to take like
he can hack
8
through
minutes or so.
Those handcuffs are tensile steel. You can hack through them in about minutes. But if you're lucky, you can hack through your ankle in 5.
And then he walks away and he's like, "You're mad, man. You're mad." Yeah.
Yeah, and Johnny's all like, "It's not my fault. I got mental health problems. You should understand that. You have them yourself now."
Now, yeah.
And that is the end of the first of the Mad Max movies.
The end is the car exploding.
The car does explode.
As he drives away.
Yeah.
Now, I always wanted to see Johnny the boy show up in like the 4th movie.
That would have been fun. That would have been fun.
With a missing foot.
Yeah, there was like a fan theory that Toe Cutter shows back up in the Fury Road because it's the same actor that plays. But he very clearly dies in this movie.
Yes,
like he's very clearly dead. Like there's no chance that it's the same actor, obviously, but different characters.
Most sincerely dead.
Yeah, if there's anything you can definitively say, I think he's dead.
They have similar elements, though.
They do. They do. Okay, so let's talk about the end of the movie. So, final thoughts. Let Dom go first.
Yeah, I got a lot of notes, but as we were just saying, this movie, there's some themes that show up later in Fury Road, like this religious fervor that they have about the gang. That when the Knight Rider in the beginning is like, "Do you see me, Toe Cutter? Do you see me?" As if Toe Cutter could see him, as if he's mystical or godlike. That he's both trying to impress Toe Cutter and somehow has a feeling that Toe Cutter could observe him, just like those, I forget what they call them, but the pasty war boys, like their war boys attitude towards Martin Joe in the 4th movie in Fury Road. I like how Toe Cutter, they have all these names for the gang members, but they don't bother explaining to us where they got the names.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can assume that he has cut somebody's toe or cut someone's toe off, and maybe multiple people, but we never actually see him do that in the movie. Nobody explains why he's called Toe Cutter. So I find that all very interesting, and probably, not everything has to be explained. I wanted to mention I don't know if he's the commissioner or the superintendent or whatever, but the police boss, the DA, whatever he is, who's off to his kendo lesson. He's coming to yell at Fifi, the chief, about the budget or whatever. And he's carrying a kendo mask, and I think he has a sword too. And he's clearly off to go practice or something, but it's just there. It's not mentioned. They don't put a lampshade on it. He just, it's part of the world building. This guy has a life. He's got places to be. He's got his own whole character going on. That just little details that I like. But also I want to give a shout out to the radio dispatcher lady who
Yeah.
is there constantly throughout the movie giving us information. A lot of it you don't hear that. You got to
So
really
say
be
you can
listening
barely
to her.
hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But it's very clear at the end that she's like that Mad Max is unauthorized, that
Yeah.
what he's doing is
He's a
he's not
renegade.
authorized to do it. Yeah. Which brings me to my main point that Max is part of the problem.
Hmm.
That this,
Go
as
ahead.
I said earlier, this is a pre-apocalyptic movie. Society has not fallen apart yet. Max has abandoned his role as a police officer. He's been on the verge of abandoning it for a while.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to do it. He's not interested in keeping society together because clearly they need every police officer they can get. And then when this all comes back to him personally, he further helps move along the disintegration of society by taking the law into his own hands. When he goes rogue, when he goes vigilante, he's contributing to the downfall of society because he wants his personal revenge, because what's going on with him is more important than society as a whole. And so, although we all understand why he does this and are sympathetic to him, he's actually making things worse by doing this. So and not to get too far ahead, but he does this again in the third movie in Beyond Thunderdome. He undermines the reestablishment of society in Beyond Thunderdome for his own personal reasons. There are people trying to rebuild society and he destroys it.
Mhm.
Got shit to
And
do.
yeah, and what I find very interesting is that Tina Turner's character, who's sort of presented as the villain in that movie, her reaction to him destroying her society is just to laugh and walk away. So Max, I would think, is really the problem, not the solution. He's not just an anti-hero. He may actually be a villain.
I really like that reading of it,
Yeah.
as in terms of like the post-apocalyptic part of it. My I really like this movie. It's not my favorite in the series of Mad Max movies, but it's definitely, I think, holds up in terms of the way it's filmed. Is very engaging. Ignoring the apocalyptic part of it, I think you can also kind of take it as almost like an allegory for his own, just like his own life as he's kind of giving up. Like, as you mentioned, Max has, and they mentioned in the movie several times, Max has tried to quit his job as a police officer, which is the job of a civil servant, which is similar to George Miller's job as a director. But he was a doctor beforehand, which is another career that he didn't really want to get into, but got into in order to facilitate his career as a movie director. So I think you can kind of read it as almost like an allegory for like him giving up a thankless job of working to help people for free, quote unquote, even though you get pretty paid pretty well, to take on something a little bit more selfish of like doing something artistic, in this sense, making movies. In Max's sense in this movie, focusing on himself and the revenge that he wanted for his family being killed, even in spite of how civilization or culture is going to take that. That's how I kind of thought of it. Looking at it a few viewings in now, like I said, watch this movie a lot of times. Um, but I also like what you said about Max being the villain, because he does have some villainous qualities. He definitely has some like Batman kind of stuff going on, right? Like with his origin story, and you can tell Miller, like we talked about, being a big DC Comics fan, probably also was very familiar with the Batman origin story, and kind of he seems to take a little bit of that too and kind of throw that in there, that like he needs to suffer this major loss to justify his revenge, except his vigilante takes it one step further than Batman was willing to, because he does get lethal, whereas Batman
Mhm.
kind of refuses to go to that step. So those are kind of my feelings on it. We'll talk about more and more about each movie as we go through, and then by the time we get to the end, I think me and Travis will talk about how we feel about all these movies all together.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, first movie, those are my thoughts. Travis, go ahead.
I would say, yeah, this movie, I mean, y'all did pretty much cover all the things about that, but like I think it's a really good, and I always thought this, going from mostly seeing the second one and then kind of going back to the first one, and you can watch it as a not apocalyptic movie or even not as a pre-apocalyptic movie and sort of
Yeah.
get something like, well, that's just Australia, that's just, backwoods Australia, but as a pre-apocalyptic movie, I really like it, and it seems like that reliably seems like what it would look like, a society in decline.
Yeah.
That seems like what it would look like to me. Like that, I think they kind of hit that spot on. So it's definitely the movie that got me into, well, maybe not this one specifically, but these movies are definitely the ones that got me into apocalyptic movies at all. So, which I think everybody, but yeah, no, this one, I really like how gritty it is, how real it feels, and just kind of how painful it is. Like it's
Yeah.
like there's like you just everything is just so like right there with you. So I like that. But yeah, I definitely agree. Mad Max definitely is not a hero, but also we don't need another hero. I know it's been sitting there, and I was like, well, I have to get it out. So-
Setting it up. I like it.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
that is where we will end tonight's discussion on Mad Max. Next week, we will be back to talk about Mad Max 2, and we will be joined by one of my friends who is not the host of, but one of the cast members of a Starfinder slash D&D role playing, whatever you want to call it, podcast by the name of Colin. He's going to join us to talk about Mad Max 2. So that's going to be what we talk about next week as we continue our month of Mad Max and having different guests on to talk about all these different movies. Before we get out of here, let's let Dom say his piece and plug all of his stuff once again.
Yeah, it's Monster Movie Fun Time Go at mmftg.com.
Yeah. And they do some really fun kaiju reviews.
Oh, yes.
You can listen to them on YouTube. Yeah, I said there's some, and then you also during October you did just a bunch of different zombie movies as well this month, this year or last year, I guess.
Yeah, every October we do 31 Days of Horror.
Do you
Episode-
have
episode
do you
every-
have a theme picked out for this upcoming October as we are
I-
currently 4 days
I-
into January?
I have not decided for certain yet. No,
I know you've done werewolves before, so I can't
did
throw out werewolves at you.
we
Like,
did werewolves.
yeah, I'm certain you've done vampires. You've done
What
vampires.
about
No,
why?
we-
You haven't done vampires.
No, last year was the first time we did a theme. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
been some vampires, but it
Ah.
wasn't all vampires.
Nice. All right.
It
Well,
was-
yeah.
Oops, all werewolves last year.
if you ever get around to talking about the 1980s vampire musical slash comedy Rockula, let me
we
know,
did that.
'cause
We did
damn
that
you.
already.
Yeah.
I didn't know you talked about. That's one of my favorite
Yeah.
movies of all
Yeah.
time. I love
It's
that
great.
fucking
It
movie.
is great. I'm
Tony
not the
Basil
DJ.
is
I'm the vampire.
Exactly. Tony Basil and Bo Diddley showing up in random cameos. Well,
Yeah,
Tony
fucking
Basil's more of a cameo, less of a cameo. She's just fucking main character almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She takes over the movie as soon as she starts dancing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the long. Travis and I will be back next week, so you don't need to hear what we're doing. Thank you guys for coming along, and we'll talk to you guys next week. See you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.